I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for coming. I really have wrestled with this topic a lot, and I'm excited to share with you some of the things that I've learned. This will be presented from, for the most part, a parenting, because of my work with children, mostly from a parenting standpoint of how do we support our children, but all of the principles still apply in how we view when we make mistakes ourselves. So now I wanted to start out and say, it's bound to happen that we're going to mess up. And I'm not sharing any names to protect the members of the Lambson family, but perhaps you have experienced what we have. Someone posts something online that ruins a longtime friendship. Or perhaps you forward what you thought was a funny meme. Or perhaps you clicked on pornography not realizing how much of a pull it would have on you. Or perhaps you wrote an inappropriate word in every yearbook in your school. That was not me, but one of my children. Can you imagine? The principal calls me and says, so what do you do then, right? It's written in every yearbook. We'll talk about that another time. Well, I want to ask you a question. How do you feel about mistakes, really? How do you feel about mistakes? Let me just, and actually we have a handheld mic, and Chris is going to help us. So I really feel like when I have a chance to present, the best ideas come from you and not me, and that's the truth. Someone else will share something and you'll go, oh my word, that's exactly what I needed to hear. So I want to ask you, is it okay with you, just someone tell me what you think, is it okay with you if your kids make mistakes? Does it throw you off? Is it okay? Just online or just in general, how do you feel about mistakes? Yeah, right here.
I don't have any children, but I usually go by the phrase, my worth is set and everything is just an experience.
Wow. My worth is set and everything is just an experience. I love that. I have a friend who says, they're not, even when I told her about this topic, she said, it's hard to know, how do you define mistakes? She said, they're just growth experiences, right? It's just part of your journey. Does anyone not have growth experiences on their journey? That would be a pretty short journey, wouldn't it? Yeah, Linda.
Well, when I was a young mother, I really felt terrible when my children made mistakes. But now I'm a very old mother, and I have learned that they learn more when they make mistakes than they do from not making mistakes. And all of us do. I look back on my own life, and I have learned more from the terrible mistakes I made than my successes.
It is interesting that if you can change that mindset of there's something to be gained from mistakes. For some reason, when we make a mistake or our kids make a mistake, there's an immediate judgment, either a self-judgment or a judgment of them, that we feel like something bad just happened. Usually it's just that we don't like the consequence of that choice, right? It's really hard to define what's a mistake, right? So I recall one time when a couple of my kids were younger, I went outside and they said, Mom, come and watch. We're filming a video, and they had built a bike ramp that went up like this, about 4 feet, and then the coming down ramp was about 10 feet away to come down. And they said, we're going to jump from this and we're going to see if we can make the other ramp. There was no way they're going to make the other ramp, right? And they said the name of our movie that we're making is called Smart Kids Doing Stupid Things. And I went, oh my word, that's going to be a really long movie. I think we all belong in this movie. One thing I've learned, however, I have 5 boys and 1 girl. When a girl makes a mistake, she says, oh my word. Like if she didn't make the ramp, she'd say, I'm never doing that again. The boys are like, maybe next time if I do it like this. Isn't that true? I don't know what it is, but okay. So it has been proven over and over that when kids make mistakes and they're met with loving support, that it really becomes a way to project them and they grow so much faster. So sometimes, however, those choices online have serious consequences. And in the last class, you heard mention of the excuse me, of the meeting with the CEOs of the various social media platforms. Raise your hand if you saw any of that hearing. Some of you may have seen it. So this was a congressional committee that was asked to look at why are these social media companies not self-monitoring when they know that it's causing such serious mental health issues and often suicide amongst young users. And it was shocking and disappointing. So disappointing is a gentle word. Excuse me. That these social media companies and the CEOs who run them do not care about your child. And we're not here to talk about that, except it really struck me. I'm so sorry. So it really struck me that that room was filled with parents who had pictures of their children printed out. And when they turned the camera around, it was heartbreaking to see how many children, how many youths had lost their lives because of a mistake that was made online that they could not get taken down, and they couldn't deal with the consequences of that really long-lasting choice. I have a daughter-in-law who is a social worker at the hospital in St. George. And one day she called me and she said, Deanna, I believe in what you're doing so much. She said, I had 2 boys come into the hospital, or that are being discharged from the hospital, both of which had attempted suicide because of an intimate photo that was shared. And they could not deal with the consequences of this choice, and that in their mind there was no way out except to take their own lives. So I wanted to share with you a suicidal belief system. So this stems from, you think, why is this happening? Why are we seeing so many kids that feel like, oh my word, I made a mistake online. There is no way out. I've just got to end it, right? Well, as we talked with the UCAP board about what is it that we need to learn as parents and about ourselves individually to stop this trend, to stop this from happening. Every life is precious. This cannot keep happening. And so we talked about how every child needs to feel that mistakes are normal. Mistakes are normal. They need to have the resilience to know that they can get through this, and they need to have loving support, that they are loved no matter what. You can see a suicidal belief system is built on, I'm no longer lovable, I don't deserve to live anymore, I am helpless, there is nothing I can do to solve this, and poor stress tolerance, I cannot stand the pain anymore. So what is the solution? The solution is sending the opposite message at every opportunity. There is a way out. I can help you. It will get better. You're not alone, and I love you. And another one, that this will not last forever. The pain you feel right now will not last forever. Somehow, and I find myself saying this to my kids all the time, the pain that you feel right now will be a little bit less in a day, and a little bit less in a week, and a little bit less, and the time will come where it will be a thing of the past, right? That's part of building that resilience. I wanted to share with you, this is just a recent little story of this sweet girl whom I love. I teach on Mondays at a Montessori school, and in this particular class, this is a 3rd grade class. Recently, I'd been gone for 2 weeks because my mother passed away, and she passed away on a Monday. Her funeral was a week ago Monday, and so I had been gone. And I came back to school, and I'm sitting in a circle with these 3rd graders, and these sweet kids. I love them to death. And they said, Mrs. Lambson, where were you? You were gone for so long. We miss you. And I said, well, my mama passed away. And it was quiet in the room. And little Michaela stood up from the other side of the circle, and she came over and she wrapped her arms around me. She lost her father in December due to cancer. She wrapped her arms around me and she said, I can help you through this. It was like the sweetest message to my heart, that she understood. I just thought that was the most beautiful message. I can help you through this. So what we want to do, instead of that dying flower that you saw earlier, we want to send a new healthy belief system to ourselves and to our children. And I'm just going to scroll through these quickly. I can handle discomfort. It's true that a lot of and we've talked about this in the opening session, a lot of the behaviors or the mistakes that we might make are an attempt to cope with some pain. It is a symptom of something else that's going on. Can we sit with ourselves in an uncomfortable situation? And if we've made a mistake, can we sit with ourselves compassionately through the consequences of that decision? That is something that really builds resilience. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel like, wow, I would do a different choice next time. It's okay. Mistakes can help me learn. Just like what you were saying over here, a friend that said, I'm on a growth journey, right? Everybody learns through making mistakes. I can do something. I actually really like this part. There's something about making a choice to do something that helps you feel better about the situation. Okay, so whatever it is, you've ruined a friendship, you've shared something online you wish you hadn't, whatever it is, whether it's online or offline, you've made a decision, you feel like it was a mistake, you wish you could change it, but you can do something. We're going to talk a little bit at the end about what you can do. When you make a choice, I read a book that I absolutely love and recommend to you. It's called The Upward Spiral. By Alex Korb, if you want to go look it up. I've read it 4 times. I love it so much. And it is about how we can, the things that we can do to help our own mental health. One of the things that he says is that if you make a decision to do something, in other words, you set a goal, you make a plan, you make a calendar, you make a checklist, you make an intention, whatever it is, even the act of just making the plan makes you feel better, even if you don't do the plan. Isn't that so cool? You don't even have to reach your goal, just make the goal. Make a plan. I love that. I am stronger than this problem. I can still love me. And then the sunshine over here, others love me. Others love me no matter what. So any conversations that we can have about these are going to help us be resilient when mistakes do happen. So I want to talk a little bit about this unconditional love part, which I think is huge. This is from a parenting standpoint. Unconditional love. Now, I would guess that every parent does have unconditional love for their kids. I would guess that they do. However, is that the way our kids see it? If you think back to your upbringing, when your parent got really angry at you about something, you weren't thinking at that moment, they're expressing their unconditional love, right? You're thinking, they hate me. My dad hates me, right? That's just where we go in our brain. But let me share with you an example. And these are socks, courtesy of my son Noah. But this is a story about a boy whose name is Smith Alley, and maybe some of you have heard him speak before. He, when he was 14, decided to talk openly about his struggles with pornography and a long time habitual use that he had had with pornography from quite a young age. And he shared that his mom did everything right. She said, you know what, if you see it, you're not going to be in trouble. Come and talk to me. I can help you. And, all of these things. And he said, why didn't it work? Why did I still get involved in this and never tell my mother? And he says it was because of the socks. Well, that doesn't make any sense to us, right? But for him, he said, my socks were on the ground, and she got so angry about the socks that I thought, if she's this mad about the socks, I cannot tell her about this other, right? So I want to ask a question of you, and that is, and this is something I really would love some response from all of you, how do we enforce expectations without making our child feel that our love is conditional upon their behavior? That's a hard question. I'll give you a minute to think about it. I'll ask it one more time. How do we enforce expectations at home without making our child feel that our love is conditional upon their behavior? Yeah, right here. Thank you.
I just think that communication is the biggest thing, and just reinforcing your love for them, but also teaching them not only not to do these things, but why they shouldn't do those things and how they can affect themselves negatively, how they can affect others negatively, and just reinforcing more positive approaches to these situations.
I love that. Thank you. As a matter of fact, I'm going to follow up on one thing that you said, then I want to get your responses here. So there was a little story of a family that was playing a game, and the kids they have the table set up, and the board is out with all the pieces on the board, and one of the kids just keeps messing up the board. They keep dropping their cards, and the pieces go flying off, and finally the parent is like, "Stop doing that. Stop dropping them on the board." And the child goes, "I don't know how to hold the cards up." And it was kind of an aha moment for that parent of sometimes we think that they're deliberately doing something to upset us. They're deliberately trying to defy us or something like that. But maybe there's something that still needs to be taught, like you were talking about. Use that opportunity to say, let me explain the why to you. Let me teach you how to hold the cards. Let me teach you what happens if you click on this, or let me teach you what clickbait looks like, or let me teach you what the strategies are that they use to try and get you hooked online, right? So that was a great response. Okay, we had a comment here and then one right here.
So I would definitely not give myself a gold star for this. I was more the socks mom. So I will leave
We
with that.
all are.
I don't know if anybody knows or remembers Judge Pat Bryan. He's since passed, but he raised I don't know how many children in the Sandy area. And my husband grew up with one of his boys, Cam, and my husband said that he never heard Judge Bryan raise his voice. His son never had a curfew, never just really had open boundaries because his mother and father led with love. And I don't know what that means. Like, I would love someone in this room to tell me, like, how do you do that? What does that mean? But everyone who knew them, and I can see sweet Gail Miller up here who definitely knew them, knew that home, those two parented with love first, always.
Wow, I love that. That is amazing. I do not give myself a gold star either. I think we're all working on this. I have a daughter that teaches volleyball. She's coaching a 12-year-old volleyball team. She came home and she said, "Mom, the girls on my team are always grounded. They're always grounded, or they're always having their phone taken away." And she said, "I can't relate to that. I don't know what that feels like, because that was never the strategy that we used." And I was grateful to hear that. And I know I've been very blessed with loving and respectful children, which I'm super grateful for. But I think that positivity, and you talked about it earlier, that positivity, if you tell a child, please do your chores, you didn't get them done today, or please make sure your homework gets in, or things like that. It doesn't mean you don't have consequences, but I think there's a difference between asking a child to comply with an expectation and criticizing them daily for not. Does that make sense? I think a child who is daily criticized is going to respond much differently than one who has daily positive interactions, right? Now, we had a comment over here. Thanks for the wonderful comments. I love this.
I think with leading from love and also having appropriate expectations or boundaries, I think that one of the greatest tools I've found as a parent is removing my emotion from the situation. And so the child knows exactly what the expectation is. Here's what I've asked you to do. Here is the consequence, and it's an appropriate consequence in line with whatever the expectation was. Here's what I've asked you to do. Here's the consequence if it doesn't happen. And if it doesn't happen, it's not a personal affront to me. It has nothing to do with my relationship with the child, and it has nothing to do with the child's innate sense of worth. It is simply an objective consequence to the experience, or the expectation, my bad, not the experience. And so I think that I have wonderful parents, but I remember conversations, especially as a teenager, where if I didn't do something that my mother expected, as well-being as it was, sometimes the reaction was, well, I've tried so hard as your mother to instill this and this and this, and then it became more about maybe a sense of guilt, or about her, or about whether I loved her as my mom, instead of a consequence of whatever it is I was doing. And so I think that removing our own pride or disappointment, whatever emotion that we're feeling, removing our emotion and having an objective, natural consequence to the expectation, while the love and the nurturing and the uplifting of your child is still there, really builds that sense of understanding.
Oh, my word. That was perfect. I really, thank you. You worded that so well. And I think sometimes and we heard about this in our opening session, if we react harshly to a mistake, whatever it is, then that child immediately, you have to think, what's the mental process that's going to go on with that child? They're going to say, I made my mom cry. Like, I am like the worst. I'm a bad person. She doesn't love me. What I did was so bad, right, that I am bad. Type of thing. This actually leads right into some tips I wanted to give you about how to create that kind of, how to build a bond with your child, but still enforcing expectations. You talked about managing your own emotions. Okay, so I have a friend who said to me, and she's very wise, she said, do you know what you do when your 16-year-old daughter comes home and tells you that she's pregnant? And I was like, no. What do you do? She says, you breathe. You breathe. And I love that. I think of that over and over. Breathe. Not only does that help our brains function so we can respond better, but it puts that little bit of space between you and your response, right? So just breathe, no matter what it is. So I'm going to say the same thing when your spouse comes to you and says, hey, I need to tell you because I'm upset about blank. Breathe. When your child says, I need to tell you something. Breathe. Breathe. Just breathe. It's okay. It's not an emergency that they are telling you, right? But sometimes it feels like an emergency because you don't want to hear what they're going to say, but it's not an emergency at that moment. So I want to tell you 2 examples, both about me, a good example and a bad example. Bad example first. My son, Noah, was probably 3 or 4 years old. We're in the basement. He's playing on the treadmill. I'm like, Noah, get off the treadmill. It's not a toy. Not a toy. So, and I'm doing some other workout, something. And I look over, and I mean, there's screams, and he had made the treadmill go really fast, and he had fallen and had gotten pinned against the wall with the treadmill with his hand underneath it. So his hand is underneath this belt sander, if you can imagine. I purposefully did not bring pictures. And the first thing I did is I screamed at him. What are you doing? I told you, like I just screamed at him. And it breaks my heart when I think about it now because there's this little boy missing the skin on his hand and his mother's yelling at him. Okay, bad example. However, we all have those moments. That's our not gold star moment, right? But I've learned some things along the way. Now, I will tell you that I made up for it, though, by caring for his hand, and he loved that. We had to go to the burn clinic, and so there were things that you had to do every day to care for his hand, and he loved that time with me. He loved that time with me of caring for his hand and cleaning his hand and putting the little bandages and the Vaseline and everything, and that was actually a really sweet bonding time for us as I cared for his hand. Now, better example, however, I have another son who I found out by looking on the computer that kind of followed a train of clicks where he had been looking up movie stars and then clicked on some images and then it went to these images and moved to a whole collection of images that no one would want their children to see, right? So I'm like, oh my word. Okay, breathe. What am I going to say to this son? This was one of my earliest experiences with this. I did not know what to say. Did not know what to say. So I went to this son and put my arms around him, and I said, I can see that you saw some things online that may have been pretty shocking. I'm so sorry you had to see that. I'm so sorry. That doesn't feel good. Do you want to tell me about it? I just love you so much, and I'm so sorry you're hurting. It's what I should have said to Noah on the treadmill, right? But I didn't. But this son opened up to me, and we talked. And the interesting thing is, it's been years now since this experience, but we both talk about this as the warm blanket experience. Because he said, I don't know what you said, Mom, but it was a warm blanket around me. And I don't know what I said. And it was not about the words that I used, it was the way in which I responded to the experience. And that openness that we had for that little experience has led us to many close and comfortable and safe and so rewarding conversations with this child. And you don't have to know what to say to be able to respond to your kids when they make mistakes. You don't have to know what to say. But you do need to know how to say it, right? So let's move on to the next tip. Help them process the big feelings that they have after making a mistake. So okay, so asking them questions really helps. I think too often as a parent, I try to jump in and say, well, you should do this to fix it, as if the situation is something we want to avoid at all costs. But the situation is the learning experience, right? So if we can sit with them in this discomfort, right, of the experience that they've had or the mistake that has been made, then we can support them as they learn and as they grow. So there's something that I really, this same son, the warm blanket son, he said not too long ago, Mom, I've learned that if I can verbalize it to you, I can deal with it. Whatever issue I'm going through, if I can verbalize it, I can deal with it. There's an MRI study that I really love and I refer to often. It's called Putting Feelings into Words. And it shows that when someone is upset and they're measuring their reactivity in their brain, you can see that their amygdala, their fight or flight, their impulsive, reactive part of the brain is all lit up, right? But if they start to verbalize to someone how they're feeling, it moves from there to the prefrontal cortex, which is the decision-making, the problem-solving, the rational part of the brain. So what really helps me as a parent is that I don't know what to say, and I don't know how to fix the problem, but allowing them to talk helps, right? Because then they're going to be able to solve the problem better because they're not panicked, they're not fight or flight anymore. They're able to think, wow, this is what happened. I can view this as a mistake. I can learn from this. I'm stronger than this experience. If I can share it with you, I can think of some options, right? Do you see how we're trying to kind of change the dialogue around making mistakes? Now, I want to ask you, this is your participation time again. How do you get your child to open up, or your spouse, about, how do you get your loved one to open up to you about something that may be embarrassing or shameful? Yeah, right here, thank you.
Just by talking about my own mistakes. I feel like when they see that I'm more human, then they're more open to admitting that they're human too.
That's so perfect. I love that. Did you all hear that? Just kind of talking about your own experiences. I will tell you that I use that strategy a lot. I remember when I mentioned that I have 5 boys and they all went through the Boy Scout thing, and there's a child protection part that you have to do with your kids. Do you remember that? Anybody do that with their kids? Okay, so you have to go through that little thing, and they have lots of scenarios and stuff like that. So I'm going through that with one of my sons, and I remember saying to them, there's one in there about safety online. There's a little scenario. And I remember saying with him, you know, one time when I was walking home from school when I was little, there was a magazine on the ground, and I looked at it and I was kind of shocked because I didn't know you could print pictures without people without clothes on. And I said I kind of like turned a page with my foot, and then I ran away and went home, and I never told my mother. And I said, I guess I was worried that I would be in trouble, but you know that you would never be in trouble, right? I said, has anything like that ever happened to you? And he's like, oh, no, except for these times. And then he started telling me about other experiences. I'm like, and I'm just breathing, right? I'm going, Deanna, this is the breathe time, just breathe. Yep, just breathe. Okay, it's not an emergency, breathe. This is learning experience. But that strategy that you mentioned really helps when you let them know they're not a bad person because this has happened to them, or that they made a bad choice because this has happened to you too. It happens to all of us, right? We have a little phrase that we use at home that we call the 10-minute rule, that when you see something inappropriate online, you need to tell someone within 10 minutes, which makes for some funny situations because my kids will call from the upstairs, they'll yell down the hall, they'll text me, they'll call me from a friend's. It's pretty funny. So I wanted to model this for my kids one day. So I'm at I'm at the dinner table and I'm like, hey, everybody, just wanted to let you know a little bit ago I was researching wedding photos and I saw pictures that weren't good. And they're like, good job, Mom, you followed the 10-minute rule, good job. But we're taking away the shame from this, that this is an issue we're all dealing with, right? All of us, it doesn't matter what age we are, it's the world in which we live. How do we make this something that we feel comfortable sharing our journey and what we're learning as we go along? Was there anyone else who wanted to share and answer that? Yeah, James.
So I don't have children, but as a son, I will say that one of the things that helps me feel comfortable speaking to my parents about things that are hard or that I feel maybe shameful about is having had experiences with them with smaller emotions. Mm-hmm. So I had a hard day at school, and I felt like the way my mom responded to me telling her about that was comforting. Or, I did something dumb with a friend, and I told my dad about it, and his response was great. It's those experiences that help me feel very comfortable taking the big, super scary things to them and saying, hey, this was really bad. This was really dumb. Can you help me? Because I've had the previous experiences, I trust that things will go well with them.
I love that. I think that is a really hopeful comment that you made, James, about if you're not sure where to start to build that kind of a relationship with your kids, that those little moments of trust do add up, right? They do add up. And that there's a little saying that I love, it's being there in the broken toy moments of life gets you a ticket to the broken heart moments in life. And that's so true, that as you support them in things, little things that you may not think are a big deal, but matter to them, you're building that trust. And I think that trust is so important. Maybe it's a justice and mercy thing, but I'm the mercy person in our marriage. My husband is more the justice person, like this is the rule that needs to be done. And I'm more, you know what, they're learning, right? They're learning. But I feel like if we make that relationship our top priority, then the way we respond to them will reflect that. This is something that I think I have a slide of. It's going to show up somewhere else later on, but when you see it, you'll know that I mentioned it. The greatest protective factor for your child online is their relationship with you. Better than any filter, better than any router, the greatest protective factor is their relationship with you. Now, I know this from my own experience. I know there were times when I was a teenager that I was mad at my mom. She was the one who was trying to enforce the rules, and I was angry at her. And I went, you know what? I'm going to go to my friends, and I'm not coming home. And then I thought of my dad. And I have such a close, loving relationship with my dad to this day that the thought of causing him any pain, I did not want to go there. There was no way. I went home and I did my chores and I did what I was supposed to, right? But it was that love, thank you. It was that love that made me rethink. Okay, I have 10 minutes left, so we're going to, let me go to this one. Okay. I want you to think for a minute about when mistakes happen. Sometimes we rush to punishment and we think that that is the way to be a good parent, right? We have boundaries, we have rules, we have expectations, and we have consequences. But our friend over here mentioned the effects of love. And sometimes, I wish I had known this when I was a younger mom, that punishment really doesn't work. Punishment never brings connection. Now, it doesn't mean you don't have consequences, doesn't mean you don't have boundaries, but punishment for the sake of punishment expresses all those things that we saw earlier in the suicidal belief system. I'm unlovable, I can't handle this on my own, I'm a bad person, I can't take this kind of pain, right? Discipline actually does not equal punishment. It comes from the word disciple, which means to teach. So if you're willing to take, now punishment, why do we punish? Why, as parents, why do we punish? It's because we want the behavior to stop, right? Stop hitting your sister, stop screaming, stop getting on your phone, stop whatever it is, right? And so we punish. But And it's a quick cessation of a bad behavior, but it never leads to long-lasting motivation. It just never does. So I want you to pretend for a minute, we're not going to do this for lack of time, but I want you to pretend that you each have a 3x5 card, and there are consequential behaviors in your home, and there are inconsequential. I want you to make a mental list of consequential behaviors, and it's probably a very short list. I want you to think for just a minute. What are those behaviors that you cannot let slide? These are biggies in your home. And they're going to be different. Yours is not going to be the same as yours. Okay, so what are those consequential behaviors? I'm going to give you a second. Okay, somebody throw one out to me that came to mind. Just throw one out. Anybody? Okay, so hurting someone else. Hurting someone else. What else? Lying. Okay, those were two that I had on my list too. Dishonesty. I have hateful speech, dishonesty, hurting yourself or others. And what else did I put on my short list? I can't remember. Anyway, so if you think about that, that means all the other behaviors that you didn't put on that list are inconsequential behaviors. They can be handled, well, all of them hopefully we handle with calm and with love. But too often, parents get wrapped up in overreacting to inconsequential things. I'll give you a quick example. My son was in school. His best friend's father shows up in his class, junior high. Shows up in his class and says, you were supposed to move the laundry from the washer to the dryer, and you were leaving school, and you're going to do it. He pulls him out in front of his friends, takes him home to move the laundry. Okay, did that build their relationship? No. Did it help anything? It probably made him not leave the clothes in the washer. It probably worked in that way, right? But at what expense? At what expense? And this father and son to this day have a very strained and unpleasant and unhappy relationship. Now, we're going to rush on quickly. Let me move forward. Okay. Relationships, super important. If you feel like you've blown it, you haven't blown it so far that you can't fix it with your relationship with your child. Parents who do really well at this only get it right about 30% of the time. So that means small efforts will make a big difference with your family. Help your child look forward from whatever the mistake is that they've made. So what I love to think about is that you always have a choice. No matter where you are, either before a mistake happens or after, you still have a choice. You have a choice of how you're going to respond. You can let this thing destroy you, or you can let it guide you towards a more purposeful decision or life, right? If I had time, I'd recite 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood for you. Okay, so let's go back and look at this again. This is how we want to respond when mistakes happen. These are the messages that we're going to try and give to our children and to ourselves. Now, let me see. I'm going to go on. Okay, that's my last one, so I'm going to go back here. Here's my glasses. All right. Now, we're going to talk in more of a specific way, thank you, more specific way really quickly about, let's pretend your child has made a mistake, X, or you've made a mistake. Okay, so your child's made a mistake. They've shared something, they've posted something, they've texted something, whatever it is, right? Or they've done something in the real world, not in the online world. What are your options as a parent as what you can do? Like, what can they do moving forward? Think about any issues you've had to deal with in your home. What did you choose to do? How did you help them look forward? Have you ever tried to reply for your child for something, or respond to on a text thread or on a post that they've done? I'll just say it's not a good idea. But so I'll just kind of throw some of these ideas out. Teaching your children something as simple as apologizing. It can make things so much better. A lot of times they blow something into being so consequential, and a simple apology can fix it, right? You can delete a post. You can apologize online or offline. I think sometimes the offline is even better. If your child has shared something intimate and they're having serious consequences, you can go to, there's a website called Take It Down. And they can help you go through the process of trying to get it actually removed. You can delete the post, but it is not really gone until you delete the account. I just wanted to let you know that that's one option you can think about if you just really want to remove that from being out there. Okay, now we've got just a couple minutes before we close. Oh, there's so many good things we didn't get to talk about. Okay, so one of the things that I heard about with the family that I thought was really helpful is how do you promote this kind of thinking in your own home? And they talked about how when they eat dinner at the dinner table, often they'll say, oh, what's the best thing that happened today? Or sometimes we'll say, what's the worst thing that happened today? Best and worst, right? So this particular family says, what was the hardest thing you went through today? Or something that didn't go well today? And then they say, what did you learn from it? And they celebrate the learning from that experience. What did you choose to do because of it? That celebrates and promotes their problem solving, their ability to handle it. And you can see how going through that activity, whether in the car or in the bedroom before you say goodnight and you're visiting by their bedside, to say, I'm super proud of you and how you handled that situation. That must have been hard, and look how much stronger you are. Look how you could help your child build resilience in that way. Now, the child learns from that little exercise that it's okay to have challenges, that it's how we grow, that we always have a choice, we can do hard things, and we're here for each other. So one thing I wanted to share is that sometimes we love someone who continues to make choices that impact us over and over and over. And I just wanted to say, if it seems like the road is so long and you can't see the end, it doesn't mean there isn't an end to it. There will be an end to it. And your relationship with that person will pay off over time. It's not the quick fix, but it will pay off over time, and it'll be reflected in their decisions. You are not responsible for their decisions, they are, but you are there to love and support them while they grow. Just wanted to end with a phrase from a song or a poem that I absolutely love and hope that it brings some hope for you. And that is, if you find it's me you're missing and you're hoping I'll return, to your thoughts I'll soon be listening, and in the road I'll stop and turn. And the wind will set me racing as my journey nears its end, and my path I'll be retracing as I'm homeward bound again. I'm so grateful to have a few minutes to visit with you. I hope that this gives you a little bit of hope, a little bit of direction, and some ideas that you can implement in your own family. Thank you so much for being here today.